Sit. C-Sharp squad with the marketing schemes, making brands pop like soda and dreams. With StoryBrand certified, the real hot shot. Now we step back, call the status forgot. We said bye to the badge, no guilt.
Hey, hey!
Still cooking up.
Yo,
Welcome to Marketing Live Jam, your favorite Thursday morning show.
wow, yes. Welcome. Marketing Life Jam, where we give profitable, useful, no unfiltered marketing advice in real time.
Yes, too many shiny objects out there, so we need to pull the curtains back and talk what marketing is really like.
Yep. And marketing is just good old human psychology and putting your head down and think hard and deploy the right resources into the right things instead of chasing the latest AI, whatever technique that you tend to geek out on, Ori.
Yeah, I mean, it's just attention grabbing and very interesting what is happening, but you can't ignore fundamentals and
Yeah.
make sure to keep the main thing. And with marketing, it's typically communication. Just because you can, say many things to many channels that all in sync. If your message is wrong, it's still not gonna, or if your communication is wrong, it's still not going to bring the results that you hoped for.
Absolutely. Cool. What's happening in your world this week, Ori?
I have made a big change in my life, which I'm very proud of, and I didn't realize how much it affected me. I have deleted a bunch of apps off my phone, mainly Slack, Gmail, Chrome, and I'm not much on social media, so they didn't bother me too much.
Yeah.
But I noticed that especially Chrome and Gmail was constantly dragging me into thinking work.
Yeah.
And just removing them really helped my mental state to be calmer.
Oh man.
And
I've done similar things for a very long season of my life. Now the Gmail app is back on my phone, but I'm definitely less enslaved to it as I was before.
Yeah.
Well, the next big challenge for you would be getting YouTube off your phone. Try that.
Well, I haven't had YouTube on my phone for a long time, and then I've been using Chrome to watch YouTube. And then sometimes I would end up with like 70 tabs in my Chrome app, and it's like, this is a joke. This is actually worse because on the YouTube app you can only watch one video at a time.
Yeah.
But with Chrome you can have multiple tabs open, so it was actually worse, which is why I deleted Chrome.
Yeah. YouTube, yeah. Look, YouTube obviously is a vortex, but I've started to use the playlist or the queue a lot on YouTube. So whatever that I want to watch next, I would just put it in the queue, and that's basically like my playlist for the day. Yeah, man. The struggle is real. There's way too many content than we have. We can humanly possibly consume.
Yeah.
But it's the spirit of coveting that is hindering us. There's always the next shiny object out there.
Yeah, and especially YouTube, like, because you have how many billion videos, the competition is so high. So you need to be so dramatic to grab someone's attention and make them click your video instead of some other video.
Yeah, that's it.
So everything is just drama. You feel the word is going down, and you need to watch every video. Otherwise, you're not aware of the dangers around you.
You're not informed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I'm actually a little bit sick of my YouTube algorithm at the moment because it just keeps popping up the stuff that I like. It's just boring. Like, it doesn't surprise me anymore.
Yeah.
Same as my social media feeds and stuff. But not that I spend a lot of time on social media, but
yeah.
Every time I open up Instagram, I'm like, oh, here we go again. Is these ads that I've watched before, or these brands that I've clicked on their website? I've already bought your products, so stop spamming me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what happens if you stop using it for like a month, if the algorithm resets, well, at least 30 days, because I think a lot of attribution is linked to 7 or 30 days. So that would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, man. Well, there's another life change that I have embarked into is
Yeah.
I'm off. I have been off coffee for 4 days now
What?
since Sunday. Yeah. So it has been very interesting
Why?
journey.
Out of all people, I wouldn't expect it from you.
Yeah, I know, man. It's I don't know. It's just a bit of a fast for me.
Yeah.
Just because yeah, you do rely on it at
Yeah.
times, and
Yeah.
man, the struggle is real when you're addicted to something. You're thinking about it all the time. But yeah, I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best around my family as well, because
Mm.
just like trying to get off any drug, you're not the best. You're not the funnest person to hang out with
Yeah.
when they're in the midst of it.
You're in withdrawal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I often say to Amy at night, it's like, I'm so excited to go to bed because I can't wait for my coffee.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
Yeah.
something.
So I'm on that journey. I don't know how long I'm gonna last, but
Yeah.
I'm keeping at it.
Yeah.
I'm rocking a lot of tea at the moment. So
Yeah.
anyway, cool. Well, what's on the agenda today?
Well, I really liked what we did last week, where we spoke about, hey, what's the perfect team in your marketing department that you should hire, and we spoke a lot about the marketing manager or the strategist that you need to help you make the right decisions. And then I thought about it again, and I realized that in order to support the marketing manager well, the marketing manager needs to be able to make decisions, and a typical tool that any manager would use is a dashboard. And so I thought, can we help these marketing managers to understand what they should be tracking, because they are responsible for measuring KPIs.
Yeah.
And if you start looking into dashboarding tools and all these analytical softwares, you get so much data, and it is so overwhelming. And I believe that 80% of that stuff is not needed for the majority of businesses.
Yeah.
If you spend $1 million in advertising, then there's some data attribution and certain geofields and all that stuff that makes more sense. But for the majority, especially Australian businesses, I'm curious, what are the 3 or 5 metrics that are really indicating business success, and what are vanity metrics that just the techie people geek out on, but that actually don't have any meet business objectives.
Yeah. Look, this is a very loaded question, and it's not something that we can fully explain in 20 minutes. But I think there are a few guiding principles, right? First and foremost, we need, as marketing managers, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves and also your stakeholders of the data points that are not important. I still remember helping a seasoned entrepreneur with a startup. And it's backed by capital. They've got a lot of money to spend, and they wanted to track everything under the sun, right? And look, and it was the intention was great. Like, we want to track like how many likes we're getting on social media, and then how many of these likes are translated into web traffic, and then out of the web traffic, how many people clicked on this button versus that button. Like, they wanted to track absolutely everything under the sun, which, look, there's an industry out there called CRO, so conversion rate optimization. Which obviously in the e-commerce world is quite big, especially when you get to the millions of dollars. So there will be a point where you need to track every single button, every single action, every single thing that is being done on your website and whatnot, right? But that's only 1% of the pyramid. Like, the top 1% of the amazing the amazing e-commerces out there, they do get into that data science side of things, right? But if you're not the 1%, and then you confuse yourself and your team to track these what we call vanity metrics, then you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot, or you're just creating a massive vortex of distraction for whoever that you're reporting to, because it's very easy for the CEO to go like so caught up in, how come our social media, how come we're not getting 50 likes on our last post?
Or client per like, or how many likes does it take to get a new client?
Yeah, exactly. Or how come our impressions are not up, and so on and so forth, right? So I think guiding principle number one would be you gotta determine. And again, there's no, I can pretend that there's a formula out there, right?
Yeah.
But there isn't there are some guiding principles which we can cover. But I think number one, you need to determine for yourself or your business. I still remember in my early days of business, I had a business coach, and then he said he gave us a challenge, right? And he said, I know there's so many moving parts in your business and so many variables and so many things that you want to get on top of, but if you have a dashboard of only no more than 3 numbers, what would those numbers be?
Yeah.
Right, to monitor the overall performance of the business, not only marketing.
Yeah.
Right? What would then be, right? Then and then you get to pick and choose. For some people is top line revenue, for some people is profitability, for some people is a number of sick days, right? Especially if you have a sort of like a high turnover labor, like a cleaning business or something, right? So you just need to do the hard work in determining what sort of metrics would move the needle for your business, and what sort of metrics that you need to optimize. And I would suggest no more than 3 to 5 hard numbers that you're looking at on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing that I think of is that especially coming from the agency world as well, is that when you do that stuff for clients, there is an incentive for you to confuse your client and bring out some vanity metrics, especially when the results are not good. You try to find something that looks good. And it's sad because it confuses the market. It makes agencies, just constantly tempted to come up with some arbitrary result. And that's why 100%. I find it really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that was the second point I'm trying to cover. Whoever that you're using to do your social media or do your paid ads performance, don't take their reports as absolute gospel. The ideal scenario is you as the marketing manager, you need to set the goalposts for them instead of going to the classic scenario would be, hey, Mr. Google AdWords, since you're an expert, I want to give you $5,000 a month to run it. You do your reporting, and then we'll sit and wait, right? You don't do that because, to your point, Ori, and we've been in that agency game as well. You basically can manipulate any numbers and come up with a narrative that you want to tell. Right? That's just the reality of this industry. That's why people get burned all the time, right? But instead, to avoid that, the other side of the business, these agencies could be super talented, and they could be they could be primed for delivering great results. But if you don't have a clear goalpost for them, then you're losing half the battle already, right? So the ideal scenario is you go to the agency and say, I want to know how much I'm paying per click. I want to know how much I'm paying per conversion, however you define conversion. I want to work closely with you to report on our lead to sale ratio. So if you give me 100 leads, I want to be able to tell you at the end of the month how many of these leads have actually become sales. And then you sort of work collaboratively to keep optimizing the results. Because the classic scenario, and you would like this, and you would know this, is the agency does everything they do. They come back with a report, 150 leads last month. Hey, game busted, right? Then the clients are like, one, we don't know where these leads are, or we don't know. Yeah, we don't know where these leads are. We're not sure about the number that you reported. And by the way, we haven't closed a single one last month.
Right? And half of them are bots. The numbers don't work, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So so that would be my take.
Yeah. It's obviously the tricky part is that a marketing agency is responsible to bring leads, but then the business is responsible to close them. And if the leads are not good, then it's obviously really hard to close them. But also the business is more concerned about getting new clients than getting new leads.
Absolutely.
So there is a built-in tension between the two departments.
That's right. Well, okay. So if we're trying to put this in a more practical sense, um, I would probably say campaign by campaign.
Mhm.
They're in my books, right? This is, again, don't take this as absolute gospel, but this is just how I do, or me and my team does marketing. Four key metrics that we want to be monitoring whenever we're trying to launch a campaign, right? So, metric number one is
Yeah.
the so when you're and this applies to both online and offline as well, right?
Mhm.
So even if you're running a billboard ad or a radio ad, or you're doing letterbox drop, or you're running digital ads and so on and so forth, you want to know, for the money that you invest, how many pairs of eyeballs would you be acquiring. Okay, and in digital marketing, well, we call it impressions,
Yeah.
but basically how many people will potentially have their eyes on your
Yeah.
ads,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it's really easy to measure. For example, you print 3,000 flyers and
Mhm.
go around your neighborhood and drop 3,000 um,
Yeah.
3,000 letterbox drop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that number is 3,000, right? um, so that's just the impression, which, well, like,
Mhm.
even if people just like they look at the thing and go like, not important for me, I'm just gonna throw it in the bin, right?
Mhm.
But you're spending, let's say, you spend $1,500 to print 3,000 flyers, and then you go around the neighborhood to drop them off, right? Your acquisition cost per impression is 50 cents. So
Yeah.
that is the money that you've spent for your brand and your potential message to show up on someone's eyeball. Yeah, either through a screen or through a piece of paper or through whatever, right?
Yeah.
And if you once you get into like mass marketing, like your radio and your ads and whatnot, like these companies would give you an indication on the
Mhm.
potential reach, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to know that, so that, like, if the number is super high, like, every 20, like if you're spending at $20 or $50 for a pair of eyeballs, then it's
Mhm.
probably not worth the exercise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why places like Facebook, they measure them by the thousand.
Yeah, exactly. CPM, I
Yeah.
believe. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the metric is CPM. So yeah, if you're into Facebook marketing, CPM is the one number that you want to look at.
Yeah.
Then the second thing would be the cost per click. So in digital world is cost per click or cost per engagement. Now in the offline world is a little bit hard to track, so you may want to skip that. But obviously, the more insight you have, the more opportunities for optimization. So, for example, I'm just going to say so obviously the online world is very straightforward. So you show the ad to 5,000 people and then 10% clicked, which is 500 people who have clicked the link and landed on your website, right?
Mhm.
That's a CPC, cost per click, right? Now in the offline world, I'll give you an example. Let's say one of our favorite, or one of the quirkier offline marketing strategies is what we call the wow box. So basically, you want to come up with a bulky gift or some sort of gift that you would give. So let's say you're in a high end B2B scenario where, let's say, you have a product and you use this product is exclusively for school principals. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
that you be consulting or whatever, right? All right. So now it's probably no point to run. Well, I can make the case of doing a digital marketing campaign, but what I'm trying to say is, if you wanted to go be a little bit more creative about that, what you
Mhm.
want to do is to come up with a bulky gift that sits on like an Amazon box or something, right?
Yeah.
You do your research and find the names and the address of the school and the names of the principal, right? Then
Mhm.
you set this box. Obviously, within the box, you maybe have a little gift with a message and so on and so forth, right? Within the box, and then you send it to the school. Chances are this box is going to get through all the gatekeepers and go all the way to the school principal. Yeah, because
It's
it
not
looks
going to be
like,
chucked in the bin straight away. like a flyer
It's not
would.
gonna be
Yeah.
chucked in the Yep, exactly. Well, you may have a 20% of it being chucked in the bin, right? But the likelihood of that gift or that collateral getting to the school principal is quite high,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now they open the box, right? And then you want to design an action for them to take, right? Let's say text this number, right? Or let's say scan the QR code and watch this personalized video or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, you want to calculate. You send 500 boxes to 500 schools, and you want to measure how many people have either texted you or scanned the QR code to watch the video, and that's how we would consider your cost per engagement or your cost per click.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So that's the second layer, right? Now the third number that you want to look at, so impression cost per click, and then you want to look at your cost per conversion. Yeah. So in the digital world, people have landed on your website, they've gone through the copy or whatever that you want to send them. They've now decided to either purchase from you if you sell a product, or they want to, they fill in the form for a further action. If you're in service-based business, you want to measure the cost per engagement there, right? Or the cost per conversion there, because they've clearly clicked on your website, they have consumed whatever that you want to show them, and then they've taken an action for you to potentially do business with them. Cost per conversion. Yeah. And then finally, the fourth number that you want to measure is your lead to sale ratio. Now that has less to do with marketing, more to do with sales, but you need to measure that number and also report back to whoever is doing your marketing so that they can adjust the campaign to hopefully boost the lead quality. Because the classic battle between marketing and sale is, I gave you all these leads and you suck at selling, right? And that's the marketing department version of saying it. And then the sales or the BDMs be like, you give me all these dud leads and half of them don't work and blah 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 blah. And then it's just never ending. The argument never ends, right? What would be a more collaborative or more peaceful environment is you have a constant cadence to report on lead to sale ratio. So if we give you 50 leads, how many of them have become businesses or future businesses? And obviously that we need to have a big, CRM conversation around that. But the fourth metric that you want to measure in a high level view is your lead to sale. If the conversion rate is 20%, then next month we're talking about how do we boost from 20% to 22%, right? Now we're in motion to actually work together and actually try to make this thing better instead of just starting and stopping all the time, if that makes sense.
I think from memory it's CPM, CPC, CPL, and then CPA.
Okay.
As the kind of the that's the internal lingo or the technical jargon. Yeah,
but they're mostly digital, right? Most of these terms are applicable for digital. But if you're running, and again, marketing is not only online, right? There's so many offline opportunities out there. But you need to. I guess what we're trying to say is you need to put measures in place to monitor the performance of the campaign. Otherwise, you're just gonna be doing random acts of marketing and stopping and starting all the time, right? And you need to look at them in as campaigns, instead of just a one-off, right? And when I say campaign, it means that it's designed to repeat, right? So the actions that we're taking within the campaign is repeatable, and we're measuring results in a macro sense, instead of just looking at how many likes and how many people commented or so on and so forth.
One that I would add is the average purchase value or average revenue per sale.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that will then signal to you how much you can afford to spend depending on your
Yep,
profit
that's
margins
fair.
and your revenue
Yep,
goals.
that is fair, right? So I would probably say yes, we want to measure that for sure. But in your campaign design process, you want to determine the product that you want to sell. What's the value of that product or the
Yeah.
profit margin of that product that will then determine how much you want to spend. So for example, let's say you sell a $100 gadget online or something, and your cost price is $50, which means that every sale you make,
Mm.
your without any advertising, you've got a 100% margin. So you're making $50 on every
Yeah.
sale, right?
Yeah.
Then the marketing team's job is to keep the acquisition below
Mm.
$50 or below a certain threshold that you would allow. So
Yeah.
um, for example, you sell $100 gadget, the cost price is 50, which means that you've got a $50 margin that you have to play with. You can then go to the marketing team and say, I want every sale to be no more than $25. So every transaction out of this marketing
Mm.
campaign, I want to be making at least $25
Yeah.
per item.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
Mm.
that becomes the goalpost. They may or may not be able to achieve it, but
Yeah.
at least you've got a goalpost,
Yeah.
right? So every single time you measure results, you've got benchmarks to measure against, right? This is not you barking orders to
Mm.
say we have to do it, otherwise everyone's fired,
Yeah.
right? But this is a benchmark for everyone. It's a goalpost, right?
Mm.
If you play sports, if there's no goalposts, no baskets, no goals and whatnot, there's no game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there needs to be rules within the game for anyone to either win the game or lose the game, right? But there's a
So
measurement.
yeah, this will determine the performance there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how often does that get ignored? And you just start a campaign, and you just look what happens, and you get some arbitrary reports.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, is there anything else that you would want to report from because obviously this is mostly digital. This is purely revenue driven. What else should let's just say small service business, your average plumber and etc. What else should they look at, maybe from a marketing perspective, that clearly indicates either a red flag or some, business success?
Yeah. So going back to our 4 marketing pillars: brand, lead flow, sales, and retention, right?
Yeah.
So this conversation that we're having right now here would mostly go into the lead flow bucket,
Yeah.
right? For businesses out there who are trying to build a brand, especially if you're a high-end B2B or some high-ticket service or high-ticket product, the formula would look very different to this, because the business transaction is going to be a lot more complex than a direct response campaign that looks like this, right? So a lot of these people would go into the branding side of things, which means that you'll be producing ongoing regular content to hit a certain target audience, right? Then in that sense, you want to measure something similar to this, but definitely the impression, right? Especially if you've got a closed community or a database already, right?
Yeah.
You would be, let's say you're sending weekly emails and whatnot.
Mm.
Two things you want to monitor is your open rate and click rate, right?
Yeah.
Basically, any indicator to tell you how engaged your audience is, right? I'm a big fan of having your own database or a closed group, like hosted on Slack or Circle or
Yeah, some community.
own community. Yeah, a closed community, so that you get more control and you got a better sense of engagement. Whereas in social media, is anything's up for grabs, right?
Yeah.
So you want to do that, or even in a branding point of view, one of the exercises would be database acquisition, right?
Yeah.
So the job is to convert social media traffic traffic into email addresses onto your database or into membership, sitting on your circle group or something, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the measuring stick is the same thing, right? How many impressions, how many eyeballs are we buying? How many people have opt-in? And what are some of the mini conversions that we're putting in place, and how many people have engaged, right? So again, we don't have a formula because it is case by case.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the business objective of the business. But again, you're measuring your impressions, measuring your click, your engagement, measuring your conversion, and measuring the bottom line results, which means the sales results, would be the 4 guiding principles that we're looking at.
Yeah. And I think having these as a, have it as a big billboard in your office, or a digital, dashboard that people can see, and where the benchmarks are communicated with everyone. And then if you then make a decision to say, okay, we need to improve our cost per click, then there are probably more metrics to look at to improve a particular item.
Yeah, because by having these, it's very clear that on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, you go, how come we're paying so much for clicks? So there must be something wrong there that we need to fix, right?
Yeah.
Or we seem to be acquiring eyeballs at cheap, and that's okay. We'll just keep it going. Or I would love to double down and give you another $1,000 to buy more eyeballs.
Yeah. And obviously this is not communicating you might be bidding for a bunch of keywords that give you a very cheap cost per clicks, but they never actually lead to a sale. Or you might have like we said before, you might attract a bunch of leads that never convert.
Yes. Yeah, this would give you so much clarity. So in your scenario, let's say we're killing it with CPM, cost per impression, but our lead to sale conversion is very low, right? Chances are the eyeballs that we are acquiring are not the right eyeballs, right? Or they're cheap eyeballs from, I don't know, India or Philippines, or bots and AI and all that sort of stuff, right? Which is not resulting in good bottom line results. Then the strategy shift, or the next test, would be, why don't we dial into our keywords or our creative to acquire less eyeballs but higher quality, and to see if the conversion rate is gonna go up.
Yeah.
Just different levers.
Yeah. But I think having this as a guiding principle, or some figures to look at, is really helpful. And this seems so straightforward, but I bet you that there are so many businesses that don't know this up front. They couldn't tell you that straight away.
Yeah. So every time you start a campaign, you want to be thinking through these lens in terms of measuring results, because I think one of the questions that businesses or marketers don't ask when they get into implementation mode is, how are we measuring this? How are we measuring this campaign, or how are we measuring the success of this campaign? Right. One of the collaborators that we work with, they're called Cloud Clicks in Queensland. Shout out to you, Johannes and team. They're excellent in coming up with these measuring sticks way before they start implementing something. So number one question that and I've learned a lot from him over the years, the number one question that they would always ask is, how are we going to track this thing? Right? And they wouldn't go ahead and launch a campaign unless they're 100% confident in tracking, so that they can keep optimizing the results.
It's always like, how do we define success, or what does success look like to us? And then
absolutely.
How do we make sure that we can actually say if we were successful or not?
Absolutely. Good. Well,
the good old world of data analytics and tracking, and
it's a never-ending well. It can very quickly and very easily get out of hand because of all these data that are available. But again, we just need to keep the main thing, and make smart decisions around what we're measuring.
And I think it is so easy to get overwhelmed with all the data, but keeping yourself and your agency accountable, I think, is a really first step to make sure you're not wasting too much, like too many businesses do.
Well, that brings us to a close for this episode. If you are out there and wondering, what am I going to do with my marketing? Given all of this sounds really, really good, but I still have a landing page that I'm not sure if I want to bring to market, or there's a campaign idea out there that you wanted to get a second opinion. Please feel free to go on our link, which you're going to display, I believe,
Yep.
to submit your website collateral reports. We are putting together a little service or a little even a free offer that if you send us all of your agency reports, so those of you who are working with an SEO agency and a social media agency and a Google AdWords agency, and they send you with all these reports, right? We want you to send us all of your agency reports for the last month, even the last 3 months, and then we can actually interpret what that means for you. That would be a really, really good piece of asset that you want to send through. So go to that link and send us those things if you can.
Yeah, and if you have any marketing questions, or as Alex said, landing pages or ads or emails that you'd like us to review and comment on, we promise that we'll be open and honest, and we're known to be upfront.
Yes.
So yeah, go to the link, submit your details, and we'd love to help you.
Awesome. Great. Well, have a wonderful week, everyone. And next Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Melbourne and Sydney time. Let's do it again.
That's it. Awesome. See you next week.
All right.